All right, welcome to Sunday, March 20th. Today we'll read Judges chapter 7 through 9. Let's go ahead and start here with chapter 7. Gideon, we continue the story there, has a lot of men, and God says, hey, this is too many, I want the glory, not you, and brings it down to 300. Now, I've read commentaries, heard stories on why God chose certain people at the water. I don't buy any of them. I think it was just God saying, here, these are the people I'm taking. From people talk about, some, if they were to take their hand, it's more of a military style. I've heard some people talk about if they're just going to dive into it and just drink, they're in a hurry. I don't think there's anything to it. It's just that God was, one of 300 people and whittled it down. Now here they didn't even have to fight. They had their pitchers, they had the fire, and the enemies just basically turned on themselves and then fled, and then in the fleeing, then that's when the armies then they had to fight. And so they pursued and killed then the oppressing kings. Chapter 8 has some humor in it. That word there, chide, or chode, great word. When somebody's arguing, don't chide with me, it can diffuse a situation very quickly. You see here the princes of Succoth are playing it safe with Gideon. If Gideon fails, and those other kings heard that Gideon had been aided and comforted by these people, those other kings might have come back and killed him. So they're trying to play safe here, and it costs them dearly. Notice there that Gideon came back from the battle and taught them, the elders of the city, with blackberries, basically. Now, Jether wouldn't kill the kings because of his youth. I've taught a sermon as soon as 2017. I've done it twice, where I talk about Jether not pulling out a sword because he's a youth, but then how it affects other people. And when I talked about this, I talk about the inexperience and the shame that Jether would have felt here in this chapter and in the story for not killing Zelda and Zalmunna. 1 Kings chapter 2 verse 5, David speaking to Solomon says this, "Moreover thou knowest also that Joab the son of Zeruiah did to me, and what he did to the two captains of the host of Israel, unto Abner the son of Ner, and unto Amasa the son of Jether, whom he slew and shed the blood of war in peace." That comes from 2 Samuel. He was the son of Jether. Now, the timing works, but sometimes the Bible uses hyperbole. Killed all the sons except for one, and this would have been Jotham. I would assume then that Jether was also killed in chapter 9. And if that be the case, maybe there's no connection, but the timing's right, and it could be that maybe another son made it, because they still said 70, even though 69 died. So I don't know if that's the case, but regardless, I probably wouldn't re-preach the sermon because I'm not sure there's a connection there. But because of his shame, then the lack of confidence in the sword got passed down to his children. And notice here, people just look for something to worship, and just worship God. Just do that, okay? Don't go off and worship something else. Worship God, the God of the Bible. We all worship something, so it might as well be the right thing. And so Gideon dies here at the end of the chapter, and they go back to the idolatry. All right, so interesting story here in chapter 9. It's the 5th cycle of apostasy or sin. First off, Gideon, you shouldn't have had more than one wife, and you certainly shouldn't have had a concubine. But here we go. Shechem was the first place that Abraham stopped to build an altar. Jacob stopped there on his way back from Mesopotamia and purged the area and his family of idolatry. Joshua gave one of his last speeches there. Joseph's bones are also buried there. And later on, Rehoboam would be appointed king in Shechem, but Jeroboam would end up living there. Now, much later, Jesus will have his conversation with the woman at Sychar's well. That's Shechem, John 4:5. And this is about 34 miles north of Jerusalem. Shechem's just a busy, important city all throughout Scripture, but we don't talk about it much, so there you go. Then the rest of the chapter is about Abimelech being made king, killing his half-brothers, but then goes to attack the tower, and a woman drops a stone, and it breaks his skull, but he has somebody else kill him, and so Abimelech's a prideful man right up to the end. Looking forward to seeing you in church here in a little bit, and have a great day. How did I forget? Happy birthday, Jackie.